Go ahead.
So you said earlier that Israel has a right to attack Hezbollah as a terrorist organization. I wanted to ask if you had seen the Israeli Prime Minister's video that he put out in English to the people of Lebanon last night. He had a couple lines in there. He said, "You have an opportunity to save Lebanon before it falls into the abyss of a long war that will lead to destruction and suffering like we see in Gaza. I say to you, the people of Lebanon, free your country from Hezbollah so that this war can end." That seems like a blanket threat against the civilian population. Is that terrorism?
So, first of all, let me say we cannot and must not see the situation in Lebanon turn into anything like the situation in Gaza. That would, of course, not be acceptable. And ultimately, it is as I said in response to an earlier question, it is up to the Lebanese people, not anybody else, to decide on who their government is. I said in response to an earlier question, no country in the region should dictate to the Lebanese people who their leaders are. Not Israel, not the United States, not any of the other countries in the region, and that should continue.
But Israel is dictating
to be the case. No, they're conducting operations going after a terrorist organization. That's a different thing than dictating what the civilian government should be. That's a question for the Lebanese people to decide. So,
but if they decide against Israel's wishes, Israel is threatening Gaza-like annihilation of the people of Lebanon.
And I'm making very clear that there should be no kind of military action in Lebanon that looks anything like Gaza and leaves a result anything like Gaza.
Yeah, thank you, Matt. As the Iraqi government, yesterday we spoke a bit about this on the back of this video that Prime Minister Netanyahu put out, where he's basically calling for Lebanese people to rid their country of the scourge of Hezbollah. So you seem to be backing this campaign. That's the Prime Minister of Israel talking about these broader aims. You've come out in support of this campaign, but you seem to be basically supporting an effort to change the politics of Lebanon by force.
So we want the Lebanese people to decide who their leaders ought to be. Bottom line, and that has been our position, that continues to be position. We don't want to see any other government in the region dictate to the people of Lebanon who their leader is. We certainly don't want to dictate to the people of Lebanon who their leader is, and we're not going to. We want the Lebanese people to be able to do it, but we want them to be able to do it absent a terrorist organization putting a gun to their head, which is the situation that Lebanon has been in for decades now.
Right.
And so we are hopeful that the stalemate that has existed in Lebanese politics for some time, that for the past 2 years has kept them from electing a president, because of Hezbollah's influence, because the way Hezbollah uses force to make its influence known by threat inside Lebanese politics. We hope that the Lebanese political system can break that deadlock, and ultimately we hope that Hezbollah is degraded enough that they are less of a force in Lebanese politics, and that they agree to withdraw back up above the Litani River so 1701 can be implemented.
Right, but whether you like it or not, Hezbollah is part of the Lebanese political landscape, right? So what the Israelis are doing is trying to change that landscape through force, and you're supporting that. So this seems to be a very different approach to calling for restraint, trying to get everyone on board with diplomatic agreements. In the last 2 weeks, we've gone from that to, maybe we could change the government of Lebanon through a ground invasion.
So we have always made clear that we think a terrorist organization should play no role in the government of any country, and especially a terrorist organization that has shown over decades that it is willing to use force and threaten force against the Lebanese people to accomplish its aims and to hold the people of Lebanon hostage. That is not a new position of the United States. That has been our position going back decades. It will always be our position that Hezbollah should not be able to, or should not be allowed to, use force against the Lebanese people to accomplish political aims. That hasn't changed. It's not going to change.
And now these sort of broader aims raises a question. What you've come out in support of is limited, I guess, short-term incursions. You won't say how short-term, but how long can this operation continue with the goal of basically ridding Lebanese politics of Hezbollah?
So we are in conversation with the Israeli government about exactly those questions. The goal that Israel is trying to accomplish is to push them back, away from the border. I think it's a separate. What's that?
Is that the goal? They seem to have that goal and other goals.
That is their goal. I will say it is our goal to ultimately see the Lebanese people elect their own political representatives. When it comes to Israel's military goals, I'm not going to make any forecasts. We're going to continue to have conversations with them about it.
Do you believe that Israel's military operations are being effective in such that they are bringing Lebanon closer to the place where it could politically rid its political system of Hezbollah?
I wouldn't want to make any type of assessment today. We have seen so far on the ground limited ground incursions. But as you heard me say previous times at this podium, we are also cognizant of the long history of Israel starting with limited ground operations in Lebanon, turning those into more full-scale ground operations, turning those into occupation, something that we are very clear we're opposed to, we're against. And so we're going to continue to have the conversations with the government of Israel about that, because I think it's quite obvious that there is a point at which what they're doing now turns into something different, and that has obvious political effects inside Lebanon, as well as humanitarian effects on the Lebanese people.
And what is the U.S. definition of limited incursions?
So what we have seen to date have been limited ground incursions, which is the Israeli troops going a short distance across the border, conducting operations, not pushing deep inside Lebanon. I'm not going to offer an expansive definition other than to say we will watch what they're doing and make assessments based on the facts on the ground.
But limited refers to the amount of land that they are going into in Lebanon, not the number of troops that they are deploying.
Yes, at this point, it's the amount of land. And that's a great question, because I think there was public reporting over the past few days that they were deploying additional troops to Lebanon. If you look at what they were doing, they were deploying additional troops to widen their operations across a longer stretch of the border, not to deepen their push inside Lebanon. And those are two obviously very different things.
Just one quick question. We're seeing Israel's military operations in Gaza ramp up again this week. Does the U.S. support these renewed military operations in Gaza that are being conducted?
We will always support their right to go after terrorist organizations. And that, of course, includes Hamas, and that includes Hamas in Gaza. But we continue to have concerns that without a political plan, a plan for the day after in Gaza that includes a political path for the Palestinian people to realize their legitimate hopes and dreams and aspirations, Israel is going to be bogged down conducting these types of operations for some time to come, with obvious terrible humanitarian effects for the Palestinian people, and with real security problems for the Israeli people as well. We do not think a plan to just continue conducting operations in Gaza in perpetuity is one that either benefits the Palestinian people or secures Israel's long-term interests.
But do you see any indication that that isn't their plan as of now?
So we're in conversation with them. We would like to get back to the point of getting to a ceasefire, which would set the stages for an end to the war and would help answer this question about what the future looks like and what the day after looks like for the situation in Gaza. As I've said over the past few weeks, Sinwar has been unwilling to engage in any meaningful way in the ceasefire talks. I think it is probably reasonable to conclude he's watching what's happening in the north. He's watching Iran's attacks against Israel, and looking and thinking maybe he's about to get what he's always wanted, which is a full-scale regional war, and that may have changed his calculation. But either way, he ought to return to the talks, because it is manifestly in the interest of the Palestinian people to get to a ceasefire in Gaza.
And just one more.
You've said Israel has the right to conduct these limited incursions. Can you just explain to us if this administration supports the bombing of Beirut?
So when it comes to Hezbollah militants who are in Beirut, Israel has the right to go after the Hezbollah leadership, go after Hezbollah militants who are directing a campaign of terror against Israel and have been directing a campaign of terror against Israel for some time. Now, that said, we want to see them do so in a way that minimizes civilian harm, that prevents civilian casualties, and properly takes into account the risks of going after militants who are operating in a dense urban environment.
And this is part of the ongoing discussions you're having with them?
Yes, all aspects of Israel's military campaign are part of the discussions we're having with them.
Okay, and I know you keep being asked this, I'm going to ask again. Do you have any reason to believe that the Israelis intend to bomb the airport?
I have no reason to believe that they do. I will let them speak to their intent, and we have made clear to them that we want to see the airport stay open, and we want to see the roads to the airport stay open.